All right, it is a Wednesday, October 8th. Hard to believe, man. We're already going into week 7 of the college football season. Browne Ronnie Sanders here on the Die Hard podcast, AU Undercover. It's a 247 event. Ronnie, Auburn, and Georgia. I'm old enough to remember when this was a competitive rivalry. Of course, you could say the same thing to Georgia fans when Steve Spurrier was at Florida. Steve Spurrier was 11-1 against Georgia. He also was 11-1 against LSU. So it's not the first time Auburn on an 8-game losing streak to Georgia.
Michigan, Ohio State. I think at one
15
point,
out of 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ohio State beat Michigan 15 out of 16 years. So look, this is just what happens sometimes. But a lot to talk about today. Kevin Skarbinski on deadline will be out today. Doug Dean should join us momentarily from Columbiana. And Carson Way, your intern, should be on here with us. Y'all's intern from 247 Sports. There you are.
Yep.
But Ronnie talked about Freeze is on thin ice. That's what I'm saying. That's kind of playing with words. But Auburn has had, the week off to get ready for Georgia. Buys in September, the team, you only win about 51% of the time, according to Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. Buys in September are bad. A little bit better in October and needed, outright necessary in November. But how's Auburn going to beat Georgia Saturday night at Jordan-Hare?
Well, I think first thing you got to try to run the ball. I mean, I've been beating that horse for a while, but I mean, I think you've got to at least try to run the football with the backs. And we beat a dead horse, all week, but the last 2 weeks. But I mean, when you come out of A&M or Oklahoma and you say, okay, we're gonna commit to the run and we're gonna run it more, and then you come out and in the next game you hand it to the backs a total of 8 times the entire game, and 4 of those are on third and long. You're not really trying to run the ball. So I think that's the first thing. You got to at least keep them honest. Try to run the ball and get the ball to number 8. You got to try. I think you've got to throw some short passes and get Jackson Arnold comfortable and make him feel like that, the game's going in his direction. And look, I think if the game's close in the fourth quarter, Jordan-Hare at night in a rivalry game, I mean, I think if you're Auburn going into the fourth quarter, if it's close, I think you got to like your chances.
Well, Ronnie, you've been on the sidelines. You've been in the press box. You've been everywhere. You've been involved with the staff, Nick Saban at LSU, Ron Zook at Florida. You were at Southern Miss. How hard is it for a stubborn, hard-headed coach like Hugh Freeze is proving to be to change and adapt so he can give his team the best chance to win? It's not because Auburn doesn't have talent. It's the schemes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look around, I mean, you got kind of the same situation that you had with Gus. I mean, when Malzahn, when he was the head coach at Auburn, he wanted to give it up and take it back, give it up and take it back, give it up and take it back. And, you look at Billy Napier, you look at Florida, I mean, it's the same situation. So it's just hard, I think, in today's environment to call plays and be the head coach and do all the other things that you have to do as a head coach at a Power 4 school, at any school nowadays, especially with the NIL going on.
Yeah, you look at Jackson Arnold. The first 4 games at Oklahoma last year, the same problems he had there are the same problems he's got at Auburn. Another way of looking at it is Peyton Thorne struggled in both years. I don't think he was the worst quarterback in history, but he struggled. And now here comes Jackson Arnold, the highest rated offensive recruit in Oklahoma history, and I'm sure in Auburn history too. I don't know where Cam ranked because he came from junior college, but he wasn't a 5-star out of high school. But you're looking at this, but the common thread, the denominator, the link is Hugh Freeze. I mean, it's something, there's a lot that he's doing. And again, you've been in the coaching profession. You know what it's like to be hired. You know what it's like to be fired. You want to keep your job. You start wondering, does the guy just make so much damn money that he's checked out? That's what it looks like to me.
I don't know if that's it or it's just I don't necessarily think that's it. I think he's just a little bit stubborn. I mean, and I'm not sure the entire process of I know it's pretty clear to me. I mean, look, I think it's obvious to anybody who's watching the game. Um, Hugh Freeze is calling plays. The preparation is, I think that's in question. Whether, is Derek Nix putting together the run game and Ken Austin putting together the pass game, or are they doing it together and then Freeze is calling it? Or I'm not sure exactly internally how that's working. It's pretty clear to me that Freeze is calling the game. Beyond that, it looks convoluted and disconnected, discombobulated to me. So whatever they're doing is not working. So hopefully they took the last 2 weeks and tried to figure it out.
I'll just say something that my man Johnny Haygood from down in Barber County, Alabama said. That Auburn offense is more effed up than a Tupperware drawer. I mean, it's a mess. And Carson Way checks in with us from the Big Apple, Opelika. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What do you think's going on? I talked to my intern on our sidelines, Monday through Friday morning program today, and Oakley knows a thing or two about football. His quarterback in high school at MBA in Nashville was Marcel Reed, who's now at Texas A&M. He said it's schemes. It's the schemes they're trying to run. What say you, Carson?
Well, I mean, it seems like I said last week, it's always one step forward, two steps back. And when you, like Ronnie said earlier, when you run the ball 4 times on third and long, you're not running the ball. You're really just trying to just really
I like that.
give yourself a better chance for field position. And that just makes it easy for the defense, especially against Georgia, who's great on third down, or they're decent on third down coverage. I mean, it's going to be tough. And we all know that Jackson Arnold isn't the best in pure throwing situations. So it's really going to be on Freeze. It's not really going to be on the players this week. I think it's about Freeze and the staff that's going to win or lose us this game. Win or lose Auburn this football game.
Yeah. Ronnie, you're Hugh Freeze. Let's say you're Hugh, okay? You hadn't shaved in a week. Look like you've been out on an all-nighter. You look like Debbie Downer's husband. I mean, come on. Look like you want to be here, but it's the third straight year of this stuff, and the roster's better.
The roster's better. I got beat up a little bit on the message board. By somebody posted on there about the Harsin effect was overrated. I don't think it was. I do think that certainly Auburn could have won more games the last 2 years and could have won the last 2 games. Matter of fact, if you take a deep breath and take a step back, Auburn did not have better players than most of the SEC teams that it's played the last 2 years. It does have comparable talent to the upper echelon of the Southeastern Conference right now. So, it's going to be a really, really interesting. I mean, look, you talk about Freeze. I mean, Freeze has always looked that way. I don't want to beat him up or anything, but I mean, look, I don't think he's a drunk. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's not. You're muted. You're muted, Rob.
I'm kidding about that. I think he's funny. He looks like Otis from Andy Griffith,
Well,
But
yeah,
the guy
I'm
made his
joking.
reputation. Yeah.
I was joking. I mean, but he does look hungover. But he's always looked that way. He looked that way at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He looked that way at Liberty. That's just kind of the way, and that's not
The mad scientist look.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, but
Yeah.
I do think going into the third year, it's got to work. I mean, it's got to work better than it's worked. It has to look better than it's looked. And I think, and I've said this a million times, I think Auburn has every intention of giving him the opportunity to succeed. But I think this is a really big game. I mean, I don't think they can look the way they've looked the last 2 weeks on offense the rest of the year. It's going to be difficult for him to survive. Now, if you go out and you play well against Georgia and you finish 7-5 and there's improvement and you get to a bowl game, that's a different animal. But you finish 8-4, 7-5. Okay, but if you come out and you finish, if you're 5-7 and you can't piss a drop on offense, that's a different story.
Yeah. When you've made the wrong hire, you got to pull the plug. I mean, it's just like your situation right now. I mean, with Auburn, you look at Texas, look at Penn State, look at Clemson. Those are three of the top four teams in the preseason rankings. Oregon's the other one. They're rolling along, man. Dan Lanning, he's in Mobile Friday night at St. Paul's watching an Oregon commitment, Tank Jones, play football. You look at those other three teams. Texas, I mean, Austin, we're going to have Ken Capps on our morning show Friday. He's our Texas, guy, he and Anwar Richardson. That's a tough place to have a disciplined, hardcore college football team. I don't know, Carson, if you ever been to Austin, but man, all three of my kids go to music festivals out there. Hear the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the Panic. Those are good family bands. They just Austin's wild. I mean, which I am too. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's got to be tough with all those distractions on the 40 acres at Texas. Look at Penn State. Are we going to start having the same conversation about Sarkisian? He's 2-8 against top 10 teams at Texas, 5-18 overall as a coach, as we do with James Franklin. I mean, we could. And then you look at three of those four teams, Penn and Clemson. Dabo late to the party on NIL, the portal, and then you look at Indiana. Everybody's going to be watching Indiana and Oregon Saturday. Who'd ever go back 5-10 years ago? People, if you try to get people excited to watch Oregon and Indiana, I mean, that's like watching reruns of Mama's Family. That's painful. But I just, and I'm going to go real quick before go to Doug. What are y'all's thoughts about Auburn selling the game? If you've got 8 home games, you could do an Atlanta game, Chick-fil-A, Aflac, whatever. But next year, you're going to have 5 road SEC games. You were only going to have 7 home games, 2 non-conference, or 3 non-conference, and 4 conference games at home. Now you're selling off. What that does to the local merchants, the business, whatever. Are y'all in favor of that? I mean, they say they need more NIL money. Auburn needs more wins than anything else. Anybody want to answer? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think there are 2 sides to that coin. John Cohen on one hand, look at people have wanted somebody to go outside the Auburn family and go outside and get somebody to bring a fresh perspective. John Cohen's done that, and frankly, I think he's done a pretty good job. But I do think that it's a little bit tone deaf for 2 reasons. Number one, announcing it now in the middle of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And number 2, knowing Auburn's history and trying to get much of the rest of the conference to play in Jordan-Hare Stadium and moving those home games there. I understand why and I recognize the need for doing it. And I applaud him for thinking outside the box. At the same time, those who are certainly older than me, and even I remember, I remember how big a deal it was in '89 as a kid. But those that are older than me have a real issue with it, and frankly, I can see where they're coming from.
Well, Georgia Tech, when my dad was in school at Auburn, beat Auburn. He wasn't in college 15 years, trust me, but they beat Auburn 15 years in a row. And those snobs up in Atlanta looked down their noses at Auburn. Georgia, they wouldn't play at Jordan-Hare. Played in Columbus at Memorial Stadium. Locker room was so small, Zeke Smith said you'd have to take turns. Guys would go in there and change while everybody stood outside waiting for their number to be called. And we know about Tennessee. Came down in
we had to do that at Vandy when I was at Florida.
Yeah. In 1974, Tennessee finally came to Auburn. Third-team fullback Kenny Burke scored 3 touchdowns. Auburn won 21-0. 1989, December 2nd. I mean, you're right. And Doug, jump in here and shed some light on it. Give us the bare facts, no pun intended.
Yeah. Hey, Carson, Ronnie, good to see you. Rob, is there a crazier year you can remember in the unpredictability? And I want to express mild, not great outrage, mild outrage that I thought we had an understanding with the NCAA and the ADs, the college presidents, that we could go through the football season itself without having to talk about big NIL moves and rules changes. And here we are. Quickly on that one. I'm probably in a minority. My initial reaction was outrage. How could you do this? because if you study the schedule in 2026,
Yeah.
it's great. We're getting Florida and LSU, and I can't remember who I'm forgetting back in Jordan Hare. But it's not the most sexy home game schedule. And you were going to open up with Baylor coming back, return, getting to see what's all this about Jordan Hare voodoo. So my first reaction was, I thought it was one of Cohen's early blunders, but I put the 38 revolver, Rob, and the bottle of whiskey down, and I'll come in off the ledge, and I'm thinking a little more rationally. I think Cohen, his biggest sin perhaps was he chose to make this a precipitous management decision. I think he thought it would go away quietly, and off we go. And everybody's engaged. And, Auburn is always going to get help from the media. If something's potentially a negative angle, then let's run a story on it. So as I step back from it, I think his biggest mistake was process. That he could have spent a little more time in the community, getting the businesses on board, because they're going to take a financial haircut over this, the hotels and restaurants and others, especially that opening weekend. Someone told me, and I hadn't thought about it, that's a required 3-night minimum for hotels.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big payday that they're getting cut. But the big one, I think, Ronnie, but all of y'all kind of got in and around it. I'll be more explicit. To me, right now, sitting as we are, you figure, well, we handled Baylor there. It should be easy. Now, football's not that linear.
Right.
If they come to Atlanta, and just because it's a little different environment, even if the reason they knock off Auburn, if they do that, is how they play, and they've just got a few more playmakers, which they're certainly capable of. Baylor's not chopped liver. Then Cohen is going to have a lot to explain, voluntarily giving up a huge home field advantage if you happen to lose. Now, Auburn does have a strong contingent in the Atlanta and surrounding area, so they'll have a crowd there. But I think it was arguably, if you could avoid it, maybe there's a lack of creativity. If there was a way to get $5 or $10 million by some people writing checks as opposed to what we got, that might have been the better chess move at this moment in terms of fan base morale for Cohen. But he's a smart guy, and I'm overall very appreciative of what Cohen's doing for us. So I'll give him a little slack on this one, but it was far from ideal.
Well, Atlanta.
Rob, I'm sorry, Doug. I just pulled. I'm not to interrupt you, Rob, but I just pulled up the conference schedule for 2026. But just for reference for anybody that's listening. So you got Vandy and Auburn, at Alabama, at Georgia, Arkansas, Florida, LSU, and Auburn, at Ole Miss, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee. I mean, that's a hellacious schedule.
And a sucky home schedule.
Yeah, I mean, look, but if you take a step back a little bit, I mean, at least you got Florida and LSU, and if you did have Baylor. I do think probably that, and I don't know this obviously, but I think that probably playing in the Cohen's thinking was, okay, look, we're an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away. It's going to be a home game anyway. It's not Jordan Hare, but you're going to have, 75, 80, 85% of that crowd is going to be Auburn.
90 easily.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a home game. It's not a traditional home game, but it's not like you're going to Maine to play or you're going to Berkeley or somewhere.
That's fair.
Right up the road.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to Atlanta tomorrow to see our daughter that went to Alabama. She's still a good person, and we'll be over there. And
she's still a good person.
Are
you sure she's still a good person?
Oh yeah. It graduated May of 11, but here's the thing: when I'm in Atlanta, good grief, I had so many fraternity brothers and friends from Atlanta. When you go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, there are Auburn. It is a home. It'll be at least 90, 95% Auburn. Now, when you do play a team that travels well, they come into Atlanta to Hartsfield International Airport, get on the MARTA, zip straight there to, State Farm Arena, CNN Center on the MARTA. I ride it a lot. It's you memorize it. It's an easy in and out, snatch and grab. But I'm a Doug. I don't know John Cohen. Talked to him one time. But Auburn does not need to fill their athletic department with a bunch of people from schools other than Auburn hires people from Georgia and Alabama. That's what Auburn needs to do. That because every recruit Auburn signs, when the head coach sits down and says, "Doug, you're the defensive coordinator. Ronnie, you're the offensive coordinator. Is he good enough to beat Georgia and Alabama?" That's all that Auburn cares about. So, I mean, I guess it's a done deal. And I sure as hell like Gary Stoken, CEO of the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Classic, College Football Hall of Fame. That guy's done so much for college football in Atlanta. But if I'm a local business owner in Auburn, Doug's right. I just got kicked in the swimsuit area really hard.
Yeah, and I'm being completely facetious to make a point, but it's not impossible that 3 to 5 years from now, you'll pull this archives up. All three of us will be ambling around on our canes by then. At least Rob and I might. At least I might. Not you guys, but and pull this archive, and it won't sound as stupid 5 years later. But yeah, I wonder, Mr. Cohen, love what you're doing overall in leadership at Auburn, and I think he's a real smart guy. But my question would be about guardrails. What would it take if it's strictly about the balance sheet and purportedly having an NIL war chest that's as good or better than anybody we might want to compete with, then would the Iron Bowl be for sale to be played in Dallas? I mean, a neutral site it was allegedly neutral site at Legion Field for most of my lifetime, and I don't believe for a minute it would be. But if you can take a power, we didn't move Alabama State to the Atlanta area. We moved a Power 4 team in Baylor. So I hope that Cohen is able to come out and make some Sherman-esque statement that Auburn will never. I mean, a board of trustees resolution gets passed. Under no circumstances, after all Coach Dye and others did to get the game in Auburn, Auburn will never play the following home games anywhere but Jordan-Hare Stadium. And you start with Georgia and Alabama. You don't have to include our third opponent, which is Vanderbilt. You get what I'm saying? I think people want to know, how far can this go?
Well, guys, I would think anything's on the table because the terms of endearment in life, business, and the bedroom follow the money trail. So, I would say a constitutional amendment, Governor Tuberville, put that on your platform and rally on that. Like, I've always said, I'm going to rally. If I run for public office in Arkansas, I'm running on the duck hunting platform. We're going to let duck hunting go to the middle of March.
Can I sling a topic?
Yes.
I know we're going to talk. We better talk Auburn, Georgia, or we've let her.
Well, we did before you came on, but we got a lot more to talk about.
I knew you probably did. And I don't know how many more ways with an open date you can dissect that game, because Auburn's had, 8 or 9 days, the media and fans to do so. So we'll quickly get to that. But what has been really running through my feeble brain the last number of days, especially since last Saturday, focusing on that Texas debacle loss at Florida, not to take anything away from Billy Napier yet again. He's like this. He likes to come up off the mat after being knocked out cold, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I hope he's not getting addicted to that, because he will get fired. But what a difference, perception, you can subtitle coaches and quarterbacks. Did Steve Sarkisian become an idiot over the course of 12 months? Of course not. But he bet on the Manning bloodline, and there was certainly game film. I guess y'all might study film of guys like Arch Manning in high school more than I do, but there was film to back it up, or was there? I just wonder. There was such a furor. Alabama really wanted Manning. Everybody wanted Arch Manning. And if it works out and he performs well, man, does it ever help the branding of your program to be in that Eli, Peyton, and Archie lineage? But it's been a disaster, and they're facing now, are we going to bench Arch Manning? and they'll probably have an opportunity to do that. I hope not. I hope Arch turns it around the next game they play. But and you dial that into what Hugh Freeze and Shane Beamer, Napier's dealt with bad quarterback play until last Saturday, and arguably that was a lot to do with this talented running back. So I guess my question is, it's so hard to sift, to assign blame and cause and root causes to what's really going on, because it could be some scheme, some quarterback mental issues, some offensive coordinator / head coach errors in how he's coaching that quarterback. Could be the offensive line that's not giving him an opportunity to succeed, and on and on. So all I know is that at Auburn, it's 100% Hugh Freeze. His system has been caught up with. This is the narrative, or it's yet again he got a bad quarterback. And I don't know if either of those are true. I think there's some amalgam of all of that. I'm just trying to use Steve Sarkisian and Arch Manning, two otherwise really heralded guys, to make a point here. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, look, I think that you're right, Doug. I mean, look, I think that I don't think Hugh Freeze has forgotten how to coach overnight. I don't think that Jackson Arnold is a bad quarterback. I do think that something clearly is missing. Something is, whatever that is. And again, we talked about it, Doug, before you came on. I don't know if it's in the game plan and the way they're putting it together. I mean, it's look, Hugh Freeze is calling plays. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, just watch him on the sideline. And we've talked about that before. He's calling plays. And in reality, you're going to have input in between series and those kinds of things, but you're going to have one play caller. Now, at times, certainly, if you feel good about a guy who's your assistant coordinator, your co-coordinator, your coordinator who's not calling plays, you'll give him a couple, 3 series, depending on the game. Maybe he's hot that game, and you hand it over to him, or maybe you hand it over and let one guy call third down. Maybe that's his job that week. But you're probably not doing that against Georgia. You might do that. You might do that against, I don't know, Alabama A&M, or you might do it, for whatever reason. But to me, Freeze either needs to get all in or get all out on the play calling. I mean, either he needs to be in the room and put the game plan together and call it, or let somebody else call it, because I don't know exactly what's going on right now, but it's very, very clearly not working. I mean, the most frustrating thing I think for Auburn fans is, how about try to run the ball?
Yeah. Well, all right, Ronnie and Doug, Steve Sarkisian 2-8 against top 10 teams at Texas, 5-8, 5-18 overall as a head coach. I'm with Dave Bartu, regular on our Monday morning sideline show, College Football Matrix. He's the man. Sark, every year, at least a couple of times, underwhelms, underperforms the talent that he has. He's a great coordinator, but as a head coach, it really wasn't a 1 + 1 = 3. He's a great coordinator. Gus is a great coordinator. If Gus had it up to he'd be wearing a sweater vest and calling plays and getting up at 4:00 in the morning. Like, Ryan Silverfield was telling me, he's in the office at 4:15. You want those kind of coaches that love football. But I talked to one of Freeze's friends from Memphis, and he said, I think he would just be happier going back to a Group of 5 school. And I'm like, well, and I don't think from what I've been told, I don't know what this is worth, but I'll say it. He goes, I never thought he'd stay more than 5 years at Auburn anyway. So I'm like,
that'd be a long tenure for most Auburn coaches.
Yeah. I mean, I know. So that being said, someone who's known him a long time, I'm like, wow. He goes, he's a great guy. I said, well, that's, whatever. I said, he's a great guy if he starts winning games. But you've now got a generation of Auburn fans who are becoming detached from football. They're into basketball. And thank God for Butch Thompson and Greg Williams. They ran off David Marsh and his 12 national championships in swimming. That wasn't good enough. But, I mean, guys, look at Auburn's athletic department. Look how many people aren't there that were there 3 or 4 years ago. Okay? How many people but now you also don't want to be just have nepotism and an old boy culture anywhere. But you've got to change. But
You
how many
wonder if
people?
it's a
Yeah,
Texas problem, and I don't. I mean,
I think it is.
I haven't had any venom for Texas. I tend, my friends who live in that state, the Lone Star State, and really know both fan bases, the major fan bases there, will tend to tell you, unless they're a Longhorn themselves, that they have a little bit of a superiority complex, and Auburn fans are familiar with that dynamic. That's all I'll say. But
Yes.
their Texas has started the season ranked number 1, and I think we all understand. It's not that they don't have players. I think they have a great defensive front when they play well, and they should. I don't think there's a position on their roster that they didn't recruit at a high level. But they did lose some key players, like programs are going to have happen now, to the league, to transfers, and they look across the state, and not many people thought Texas A&M would be improved, but they look like they're really well coached, and they're willing to give the fight to just about anybody, and they're hanging in there, as a Texan would say, hanging in there like a hair on a biscuit, Rob.
Well, and
Texas,
undefeated.
well, Texas is a different place.
Yep.
I mean,
The state, you mean?
both. Yeah. I mean, the school, the state, the whole, and there's a lot of arrogance and there's a lot of entitlement, and, it's a difficult place. Obviously it's a great job and you can win there. And, Mac Browne probably did as good a job as anybody.
he absolutely did.
He basically won 10 plus games every year for,
And
how many years?
underappreciated a little.
Yeah,
while he was there.
16 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did an unbelievable job. That being said, Charlie Strong has been a good friend for 20 plus years. He was there. I went out there to see him a couple of times when he was the coach there. You've got, Auburn's got Raymond Harbert and Jimmy Rain and a few other guys. You got hundreds of those guys at Texas, and you got to try to make all of them happy.
Yeah.
And they all want to have a say, and they all want to pick the coach, and they all want to pick the AD, and they all want to tell the coach how to call plays, and on and on. I mean, look, like I say, it's a great job. But it's not an easy job. Of course, that being said, none of them are easy.
No.
But it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, there was a story that came out yesterday about Steve Sarkisian possibly going back to BYU. Do I believe that's going to happen? No. But there is some chatter that maybe he's had enough, and I can see why.
He really bristled in the meeting. He saw I wish let anybody else of the 135 schools play these 2 games and see how they did. When you start hearing a coach that frustrated, losing their cool.
How about look at the rest of the conference? I mean, they got the easy, excuse my language, but I mean, they got the easiest ass schedule in the conference. I mean, let's be honest here.
All right,
Crimea River Longhorns.
Yeah, let's look at some numbers here. This is funny. I think Mac Browne did a great job, but every day, you probably had some donor wanted to ride around practice in the golf cart with you. How do you tell those people no? Each year, the state legislature in Texas gives 2/3 of the oil and gas money from the Permian Basin, Midland, Odessa, which pumps out about 4.2 million barrels per day. They give 2/3 of that revenue every year to Austin, 1/3 to Texas A&M. But long term, A&M is going to surpass Texas, and I'll tell you why. Over 20,000 students in the College of Engineering at Texas A&M. Okay, I'll predict right now Sark is gone in a year or 2. He's going to just say to hell with this. Okay, you've also think about all the students coming out of A&M: finance, business, accounting, engineering. Texas, you got a lot of weird majors there, man. A lot of, there's a lot of, it's just weird, it's not, this is not John Wayne's version of Texas, Rio Lobo. It's not. It's weird. I mean, and I know my friend that was a sports anchor out there for about 30 years said, unless you've been here, you do not have a clue. I mean, there's money, but you know what? They have a $43 billion endowment. A&M is over $20 billion. Texas alone, you could take all the endowments in the SEC, including A&M's $20 billion combined, and they're not $43 billion. And they still can't win. If you count national championships the way they do in the state of Alabama, since 1970. Alabama's got 10, Auburn's got 4. That's 14. If you count them the way Texas does, they got them since 1970. They got 1. 6 times as many people. It ain't about the money. It's about the Spartan culture that we have in Alabama.
And I couldn't help but, I mean, sorry I got us stuck on Texas, but it is fascinating. Was it just me, or was there a fair, and it was partly because Arch Manning was in the background, everybody's favorite player is a backup QB, especially with a last name like that.
Yeah.
But there was they were pretty tough on Quinn Ewers last year, if memory serves. And I bet Ewers, I know he wants Arch to be successful, but I bet in the quiet of the evening he's saying, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, good point.
And we got to all take a deep breath. It's like Mac. It was so great having Mac Browne on your show.
Yeah, it was.
When he talked about, I can tell you who's going to be on the hot seat next Sunday. The 50% of the teams whose coaches lost that weekend.
Yeah,
that's where we are.
Yeah,
Mac Brown's got a great quote. And he said it years and years and years ago. 10 years at a place, and Tuberville kind of said the same thing. 10 years at a place, you lose 10% of your support each year, and so by the time you get to year 10, nobody wants you around. And that's
gotta know when to leave, right?
And right, and the reality is that look, and I think it's becoming more and more and more a young man's game. You look at, there's some head coaches in the NFL, more than just a couple, that are under 40 years old, and they relate to kids, and same thing in college. And you look at what's going on in North Carolina. I mean, it looks like Bill Belichick's out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so 73, 76 years old, whatever the hell he is. I mean, it's hard. It's easier in the NFL. But even in college now with the transfer portal, and there not being any loyalty, it's still harder. I mean, because again, if you're recruiting the right kind of kid in college, and a kid that wants to be in school where you're recruiting them and they want a degree. And again, I've said this a million times. If you got a kid that transfers one time and wants to play, that's one thing. But if you got a roster full of guys that have transferred 3-4 times, you're going to end up looking like Florida State last year. And I don't know how Florida State's going to end up this year, but it doesn't look like a whole hell of a lot better.
To your point, I don't want to make the ladies in your audience mad, Rob and Ronnie, but it makes you wonder, kind of like the old saying goes, whoever developed the concept of lifelong marriage, it was back when life expectancy was about 35 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And coaches make enough money, my God almighty, don't they make enough money to walk away after 8 or 10 years if they have to?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Doug, you say that, and I'm probably going to get in trouble. I want to preface it by saying it probably goes both ways. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Rob. I won't call his name on the air. But I said, he's been married 3 times. I'll give you a hint. And I said, you ever think about getting remarried again? And he says, sometimes I'm sitting here, and he says, I want a sandwich, or I want something to drink. And he said, I wish I had somebody here to bring me something.
Oh my God.
He said, he said, and this is where I'm going to get in trouble. He said, on the other hand, I sit here and it's nice and quiet, and I don't have to listen to that anymore.
Exactly.
Well, like I say, I'm sure it goes both ways. You ask my wife. I don't know.
Like, this is. Let me introduce a very worrisome. I like Auburn Saturday night. It's not because I think Auburn is coached better. Kirby Smart's team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, maybe in the trenches on the offensive side, will probably be a little better coached. In some cases, maybe a lot better coached. I'm not a big Mike Bobo fan, but he gets criticized more. If you look at his results, he wins a lot more than he loses.
But overall, you can say a lot of things about Bobo, but I mean, the reality is, if you look at the totality of his career, I mean,
if you give him a team and let him do his job, he can win for you. He's not going to be flashy like Grubb at Alabama or Kiffin, some of those calling plays. But here's a dilemma that I find really interesting for Hugh Freeze, Auburn, in this Georgia game, and how, the old axiom is study your opponent, in this case defensively, and attack where that, by and large, attack where they are the weakest. Now, here's where that gets problematic for Hugh Freeze. Georgia people themselves would tell you, and if you could get honest discussion with coaches, they would say the film doesn't lie. We're weakest in our secondary. You can attack Georgia through the air. Hugh Freeze, for 2 or 3 weeks, has been subjected to public shaming by his own fan base, probably including me, maybe you guys too, and the media, and with some justification for not pounding the rock. It's in our DNA. We are running back you. We used to be anyway.
Yeah.
And so there's this powerful compulsion, and Hugh himself yet again has said we've got to run the ball. Well, they got to have balance. But I hope what we don't see is Georgia loads 7 or 8 guys in the box a lot. Late pre-snap shifts, loading the box, and we keep trying to run the ball to appease the fans when the obvious play is a 3-step drop, get the ball out of there and let Cam Coleman and some of these guys go for 50-50 balls. So it's going to be you got to run the ball to keep them honest. We can't keep getting in 2nd and 15s. But I do think what we'll learn if Auburn can make it competitive and or win. I think Auburn's going to win an exciting game. It's just Jordan Hare at night, Cam Coleman's jersey being retired. I just got to believe it when I see it that Auburn doesn't find a way.
Cam Newton.
What did I say?
Cam Coleman.
We're not retiring number
8.
number 8, but Cam Newton, and you can bet Cam will electrify the crowd and say beat the dogs or something like that. So I just hope that he doesn't try to pound his head against the wall being the Georgia front, running the ball at the wrong times. I think you're still going to have to take run some short crossing routes early because the pressure's coming, and pick your moments to get downfield with the ball and let these receivers do their thing. But I think that's setting up to be a dilemma. Yes, you want to run the ball, but not 70% of the time, I don't think.
Well, I guess my point is, if you want to be successful in the SEC, I mean, I think you've got to hand the ball to the backs 30, 35 times at least.
Yeah.
I'm not saying run it 50 times a game or 60 times a game.
But there's some creative ways to do it.
Yeah, and I think you can get the ball. I think you can get the ball to the backs. You can get the ball to, you can do some interesting things with the receivers or this and that and the other. But I mean, it can't be just the quarterback and you hand the ball off to the backs 4 times. I mean, it doesn't work.
Because, again, back to my point, and Andy Staples made the same point, we tend to look at those silver britches and that Georgia jersey, and man, Kirby's done a phenomenal job with them defensively, not just defensively, but that's his hallmark. And you expect, automatically they're going to have a relentless pass rush. Well, not so much this year. Georgia is 109th in the nation in sacks. Auburn is 5th in the nation, tied with a bunch of teams with, I think, 3.4 sacks a game, which is unbelievable. Georgia, a little over 1 sack a game. Georgia will pressure you, and that can cause interceptions. But I think be balanced. But I hope Freeze realizes that we will have opportunities to smoke their defensive backs if the play's there, and we can get just enough protection to get the ball downfield and let these receivers see what they can do.
I mean, does anybody see a 2017 November the 11th type game coming? Auburn, #1, Georgia comes to Jordan Hare.
It's funny you would say that because I've been scared to death. If you're implying that Auburn could catch fire and actually prove to be better than everybody thought with these 2 tough road losses and win going away, I've thought that. But I'll take a 1-point win right now, Rob.
Well, but you remember that season, Auburn lost at Clemson early. Jarrett Stidham was sacked 11 times, lost 14-6. And then the meltdown at LSU, that was so painful. But I don't know.
To believe that almost requires me to completely look the other way on evidence of what Hugh Freeze has done coaching-wise and adjusting. So I want to believe it, but it's hard for me to do that at the moment.
Yeah, and I tell you, the expectations, Ronnie, of Auburn fans, they're so different than what they used to. People say, what kind of season is Auburn going to have? 12-0, win every game. Now, I mean, I've got kids, they're like, they're going to the game. They may not even go in. I mean, that's got to change for Auburn. I mean, they'd rather hang out with their friends tailgating than even go to the game. They go, why am I going to pay? I'm being honest, which I always am. They've lost faith. This coaching staff in the last 6 years have killed the spirit and the faith. People love Auburn, but they just don't believe in this football program. And we got an athletic director that's filled the athletic department at Auburn, not completely, but with a lot of people who were okay with 7-5, 8-4. That's what's going on. Talk to people that have left. That's what's going on.
Well, I think a couple things. First things last, or last things first. I think John Cohen really wants to win, and I think he brings in the people that he thinks can help him get there. Now, I also think that most people want to hire people that they know and that they've been around because they know the kind of job they can do and they trust them. There are certainly concerns within the Auburn family that, hey, there are too many Mississippi State people here. Those same people were also saying, hey, we're too homer. We got too many places inbred. We need to bring in some fresh blood. So, I think that's, and then back to Doug's point, on one hand, I agree with you 100%, Doug. There's not much evidence looking at the past 2 games that Auburn's going to be able to snap out of this. But Auburn also played 2 really, really, really good football teams, both top 10 football teams. And if you didn't look at the offensive numbers and you just looked at the score, you lose one game by 7, the other game by 6, and you had chances to win both and played like hell. So,
we're the best 3-2 team in the country. We might be, but I will say this: Rob's not wrong. You're not wrong. I think your audience would want us to be realist about what we're seeing. And it wasn't the second loss. A lot of people had that happening. It was so important to win the Baylor game because of how it went in Norman and in College Station. But there is a possibility. People can each decide, however remote it may be. If Auburn wins, doesn't matter how you win Saturday night. You come out of that one and you're 4-2, and you just finally knocked off your arch rival, who is year in, year out has been in the championship talk. And a week later, you get a very good Mizzou team at night in Jordan-Hare again.
Who's coming off a game against Alabama, by the way.
Yeah, coming off a physical game. Not that we won't be also coming off a physical game, but it starts to how you calculate how the season may play out starts to look very different than it did, 7 or 8 days ago.
Great point. But again, it's feeling very 2012-ish right now.
Honestly,
Did
Rob,
you have to go that dark?
Yeah. But look, you do not want to see the third quarter people running to the exits like someone yelled fire in a crowded movie theater. You start seeing that's you're done. But this is 6 straight years of this garbage. And the ticket prices are going up, and they keep shaking the NIL cup in your face. And you're going, I'm going to Ruth's Chris, and you're serving me this damn shoe leather, calling it a filet. You're not going to be able to do it very much longer.
This definitely is. No one, including me, is going to be in the mood at all to hear, well, we're close. It doesn't matter if you lose by 1 field goal to Georgia. We're close, and I'm proud of these kids. That's going to be disgusting to hear. And actually, I would be angry on behalf of the kids because I know they're talented.
Yeah.
And they deserve the coaching that puts them in position to win.
Yeah.
You mentioned 2012. Another parallel is 1997. We go down and, we lose to Mississippi State bad.
20-0. Yeah.
20-0. We're terrible on offense that game. Couldn't run the ball all year. And, Terry comes in and he says, hey, Damian, we got an off week. We're changing the offense completely. You're throwing it every down. Get ready. You win the Heisman. And if you remember, we had Damian Craig Heisman shirts printed. Came out and beat Georgia bad, and then turn around and beat Alabama. So, you can flip a switch it's just a matter of, is the staff, is Freeze capable of doing it? Is he capable of stepping back enough to say, hey, look, here's what I'm doing wrong. Here's how we got to fix it. And I don't think the guy's forgotten how to coach. He certainly has not forgotten how to recruit. And I think it's pretty clear the program from a talent standpoint and overall, outside of the play calling and the record, which is obviously the most important, but if you look at the overall shape of the program, it's better than it's been in quite a while. If you look at the overall
Culture-wise,
talent, yeah. I mean, if you look at culture, you look at talent. I mean, look, but that being said, you've got to win games at this point. You're 3 years in. You're going to lose Cam Coleman. You're going to lose those guys. They're going to hit the portal. They're not interested in going 5-7.
But you got money when you lose a $1.5 million player, you should be able. You won't go get a Cam Coleman easily. There are only so many of them, but you can go get competitive talent. I don't know.
What does that do to your locker room? What does that do to your locker room versus having a guy like him there who loves Auburn, wants to be there? He's been there 3 years. How does that guy compare to somebody you're going to go get out of the portal?
Yeah, no, it's not ideal. No question about it. Maybe this is senility, early stages of it, but I wonder if y'all have parked this in the back of your brain. I came to be disgusted with Malzahn and the fact that I've thought about it and talked to Christy, and I really should be a CEO, and I'm going to go hire a play caller. And then a year or so later, I've rethought it, and it's who I am to be a play caller. And so we went through that, and I had forgotten, but Hugh Freeze, I don't think it was appeasement. Maybe it was, but he started his first year at Auburn saying, look, this is going to be a big job as recruiting and being CEO. I need to hire. He hires Philip Montgomery. I bet most people have forgotten Montgomery called the plays for the most part, that disastrous 23 year. But now fans are saying Hugh needs to at least go get a talented OC that can call plays, can install a system. So it feels like Malzahn 2.0. It's not exactly, to Ronnie's point, we're recruiting, I think, is almost as well as you could ask Auburn to for the most part. So I hope that what we see this weekend is at least a step in the direction of the coaching staff that can, with an open date, can put some things in that really address the problems and we get production. No one's expecting 35 points to be rung up on this Georgia team, but you should be able to score in the 20s, high 20s, and put yourself in position to win if your defense delivers again.
Well, what I wonder is, who does Hugh Freeze listen to? Does he talk to Gus a lot? That ain't very smart.
Here's how you get a big buyout.
Yeah. Look, here's what you better not have. You better not be living in an echo chamber, okay? You better talk to people that know what the hell they're doing. Gus did some good things at Auburn. Harsin, basically that was a self-imposed 2-year death penalty when that guy was there. And Alan Green, Stephen Leith, and anyone on that board of trustees that signed off on that guy becoming president should collectively pay back the $100 million mistake and everything that's happened. Auburn's been on this trajectory since then, and Auburn's got to get off of it. And it's going to take – you're going to hurt some people's feelings. You're going to say some things, and I really don't care. I call it like I was born into an Auburn – I love Auburn, but, man, we all do. And I cover all 16 SEC schools, and you want people from programs that are championship programs, Florida, LSU, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. I just wonder if I want people Monday after a loss in the athletic department to be in fear of losing their jobs, that they're not winning. You need, look, that I'm in that business, man. You have a few bad months. You get your box, you're out. I mean, put the players on commission. Something's got to change. And I know past behavior is the best indicator of future performance. Doug, you do that matrix when y'all hire people. I mean, in the interview process, what I want to know is how many of these kids on this Auburn football team truly love Auburn versus they truly love the NIL money. And when you get a guy that loves both and a roster full, because if the only exchange that you have is you got a pile of money to come to Auburn, but you're not bought into the culture, the history, the traditions, the heroes, you're not going to win.
And that goes for anywhere.
Anyway, that's in any business and a marriage. If you marry for money, you'll probably pay for it the rest of your life. That being said,
Ellis Johnson told me one time, and he said, this is when he said, first time I got married, neither one of us had any money, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
The second time I got married, she had all the money, so it didn't matter. He said, the third time I got married, neither one of us had any money. I'm sorry. He said, third time I got married, all the money was me, so it's got to work. Of course, it didn't work then either. But I love Ellis. But
I love Ellis. I love the
great.
man from Winsboro. But look, you know what? I'll be down there Saturday. We're coming down from Atlanta, and I've never gone to a game to watch the opponent. I'm going to see Auburn. I love it. I love being down there. But also, I don't drink the Kool-Aid. And it's like, ask Dan Patrick, why'd you leave ESPN? Remember what he said? Well, they started telling me who to interview, who to talk to. They could only be ESPN people. Talk to this person. He goes, I was living in an echo chamber. It's not what I signed up for. You got to have outside opinions, but some of the best people Auburn's ever had left. But also you are right. Incestuousness, you get stale. There's a happy medium there, but the crowd, what I want to see is a full stadium of 90,000 plus.
Oh, you're going to get that.
When the game's over.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to get it then because Auburn is going to win. I'll tell you why. It's sometimes it's just in the air. There are plenty of games that played in Jordan-Hare, but the ones at night that are really big games, much less arch rival. If Auburn is decent, they show up, and I'll tell you, Hugh Freeze is going to have a major problem hanging in there if he doesn't win this one, because we know enough football to know there's enough talent on the roster. There's not enough talent to make the semifinals of the playoff. But there's enough talent in Jordan-Hare at night to win this game. And the reason is Auburn is, no one wants to say this. It feels like heresy, but I don't care. You can send this to Kirby in an email for all I care. Auburn is significantly better defensively than Georgia. Let me say that again. This Auburn defense, if they play like they have been, is significantly better, and they'll have the wind in their sails of that Jordan-Hare crowd. And I've seen this before. It's Alabama, on the other hand, they are probably the most improved team, and I think Ty Simpson is worthy of Heisman talk. Alabama's probably playing more cohesively and with more energy and efficiency than anybody I'm seeing at the moment. Maybe A&M or OU will change that. But Alabama also, like Georgia, is 109th in team sacks. So Georgia, statistically at least, Georgia still hasn't played a team that will get after the quarterback's ass, and I think they'll see that this Saturday night. Auburn wins it like 24-21-ish type of game.
I will not be surprised at all. And like Brendan said about Florida getting the win over Texas, I saw that one coming. He goes, that had nothing to do really with Billy Napier. It was the fans and the swamp culture willed that to happen. Doug, remember we were at the Auburn Texas A&M game last year. Got back to your house at Lake Martin about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. Mildred was over there with us having cocktails out on the deck. But you know what, guys? This is one of those Billy Graham revival Auburn games Saturday night. Everybody's going to give everything they got. And if Auburn loses, it won't be for a lack of effort from the fans, Ronnie.
No, I agree.
About run out of time. But
you made a point, if he loses, and I want to push back a little bit before we go, but I don't know that it's obviously it's important to win the game. But from Hugh Freeze's job security, I don't know that it's as important as how they look offensively.
You might be right.
If Auburn comes out and loses a 27-28 game and plays great on both sides of the ball, and
you'll still be 0-3 in the conference.
Yeah. You'll still be 0-3 in the conference, but you'll also have, look at the losses you have, and